talk about some of those best times to begin with. There was a lot of incredible moments across 2024 in the world of women's basketball. So many, honestly, but I'm just interested, just a little walk down memory lane to start off Ball Up Top today with your best moment of 2024. Andrew, what comes to mind?
All right, this is like a little bit of a zag. I tried to go off our normal paths here of like we know the obvious ones, South Carolina going undefeated to win the national championship. We know that Caitlin Clark breaking all the scoring records under the sun, making it to the national title game in a Cheryl Swoops-ish type of run, going first overall, all WNBA, all that stuff. Like we know these things. The off the beaten path zag best story of 2024 to me, NC State's Final Four run. I think this is like the ball nowhere hipster pick because to me, Wes Moore was like research triangle Doc Rivers. It was like I don't trust him to win the big one. He'll always do something to overthink himself. He has Alyssa Cunane for like 2 or 3 years, and they go 27-3 in the regular season, and they win the ACC, and then they lose in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, and you're just like, I don't trust this guy anymore. I don't trust this team anymore. And they make this run last year with Isaiah James, with Sanaya Rivers, with Mimi Collins, and upset some pretty major teams on the way, like a second-seeded Stanford team that has Kiki Iriafen and Cam Brink, and you're thinking like, okay, they're going to probably make a deep run into the Elite Eight. They get past Texas. Obviously, they run up against the buzzsaw that is South Carolina, but that was really – it was the most Cinderella 3-seed I could possibly think of. And to see them kind of have that moment, to see Sanaya Rivers, who's a friend of No Cap Space on our show here, have that kind of moment, and Wes Moore finally get over the hump and make it to the Final Four, I personally think it's a really neat story. Like I think it's a super cool story. I think that it's one of those things where the fan base gets energized by it, and a basketball school in NC State has something to rally around, especially considering the men's team are making the same run at the same exact time, right? So I think that was probably up there. The other one, too, Juju Watkins breaking the freshman single-season scoring record, 920 points, broke it in the NCAA tournament. And I want people to know this because this is important, tapping into kind of our legendarium context of history thing, right? She takes out Tina Hutchinson's record at San Diego State. People don't know Tina Hutchinson because she is one of those very original, like, if it wasn't for injuries, she would be that player type of story. Go back and look at the statistics of Tina Hutchinson's freshman year at San Diego State. She was dueling Cheryl Miller and beating her. Like, San Diego State meets USC their freshman year. Tina scores 41, Cheryl scores 36. So there is a historical precedent of like this being one of the greatest forgotten stars of the 1980s. And Juju eclipses that record in her freshman year, brings USC back to prominence, and kind of brings the trophy and brings the belt of elite player back to the Galen Center, back to Los Angeles in a way that it hasn't been in a while. So those two, I know I doubled up.
No, it's okay because I'm sure I want to probably know a couple anyway. So no, do your thing.
But I think like
No,
really
never
cool.
follow the rules.
No, never. That's that's what we do here.
Sorry.
And NC State, I think, is the best team story. Juju for me is a cool moment because it also showed us that Caitlin is not just going to be the flash in the pan, right? Like Caitlin is the motion. Caitlin is like the earthquake, right? That shakes the sport to its core and changes the trajectory of the league and the sport forever in a lot of ways. But we have had stars in the past that move the needle and then we kind of come back down, right? Like Candace Parker brings us up in all of these metrics, and then we kind of come down after she enters the league. Juju Watkins is the proof positive that there is life after Caitlin, that there is another star to come to the league. And so I think the fact that even though she doesn't make the Final Four, I think the fact that we have this kind of coalescing of events there where we have Caitlin's, swan song senior year where she beats all of these records, and then you have Juju kind of under the surface doing the next thing. I think to me that is a best or top moment of 24 because it reaffirmed what women's basketball's trajectory as a whole is and showed that, the tide is rising via Caitlin, via Angel, via Paige in the future, but it's not going to go down. Like the water level is here and that's where it is. And the only place it can go is continually flooding upwards. And so those two to me, I think are great because you need the stars, you need the top players, and then you need the stories like an NC State to really kind of push home this idea that anybody can still be competitive year in and year out. And we got that. So those two work in concert, best moments of 24 for me.
Heck yeah. Greer, is it an illegal screen?
Absolutely not. Please.
Sorry.
You're bringing up I got PTSD. But I will say, it's not my favorite moment, but I will say Connecticut making it back to the Final Four last year.
What's crazy?
After snapping the streak snapping with 7 healthy players. Mm-hmm. Truly an amazing moment for women's basketball. Mm-hmm. But we got bigger fish
for women's basketball.
Yeah,
what a hero! Thank you, UConn. Yeah. Thank you for making it back to the Final Four for us.
That's so NBA coded,
Thank you.
Gotta get our brands back in there.
Continue. But I will say though, because I love what Andrew just talked about and Juju and how like her ascendance kind of proved that it's not just a flash in the pan with Caitlin. Because my best moment of this last year in women's basketball was us getting to go down to overtime select. And just that entire apparatus around the women's game for girls that are between the ages of 15 and 18. And they brought together something like 40 or 50 of the best players over a series of weekends in Atlanta at their facility down there. And it just, like that is what showed me like,
pro level, like the facilities were, we harped on and on about it like when we were there, but those facilities were ridiculous. Like better than, like they were, like there was
better than some WNBA teams. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm talking like I remember there was someone there that was like, this is better than the Charlotte Hornets. Like this, it's NBA teams that they were going against. Like, which might be more of an indictment on the Charlotte Hornets, but it was great facilities. It was good stuff.
Yeah. So for me, like that was the coolest moment of 2024 is seeing just like the continued investment in the women's game, even at the grassroots level. So now names like Aaliyah Chavez, Jersey Robinson, Gigi Banks, Kalina Smith, the Paldo Twins, like these are all going to be household names before they even set foot on a college campus. And I think that is so freaking cool and way overdue, frankly. But just the fact that there are 10 more actually, but like to your point about being a ball knower, like, I know exactly who's up next.
Oh yeah.
I know exactly who's up next.
Especially in women's basketball, like where scouting hasn't been as in depth and like the reporting on like the top 5. But we saw players, and it's from like 3 years like worth of players, like different classes and whatnot, all mixed in together. Like it was so dope. Like it was so fire. We had so much fun. Back out there this summer
for sure.
Need overtime. Hey, but nah, we had so much fun. And to your point, we saw some players that are up next. Goodness, like there were some incredible players out there. Like, and then we even got to go see, like, we went and saw Kalina when I was out there in LA. I get to play and like Kalina Smith, who just signed with Adidas, like we were seeing her in overtime, like before she got signed with Adidas. Obviously, she was already a top recruit and everything, but it was so much fun. I'll tell you, for me, I think my favorite moment was almost the reintroduction of sorts of Cheryl Miller. Was just my favorite point of just like the entire season, and it kind of has to do a little bit with Andrew, kind of what you were saying with Juju, and a lot of that has to do with like the individual moments that Juju had. But after, we talked so much, and I think correctly so, about how the league and women's basketball has failed itself a lot of times with the lack of storytelling and the lack of history keeping and history appreciation, and the appreciation of these players that have come before. And Cheryl Miller, frankly, is one of the players that is most known and like has been appreciated the most. But being able to be there in Phoenix, when she was like, we saw her throughout the season with USC, and we had our fair share of fun USC moments. Like, I'll never forget the playback we were on when Juju scored 51 against Stanford. Like, that was one of the most fun watch alongs we've ever had, ever. But seeing Cheryl Miller, like, I don't get starstruck. I really don't. Like, I never had, like, I just haven't. When Cheryl Miller walked into that press conference in Phoenix, that was the coolest person to ever walk the planet Earth that just walked in. And, like, seeing her just, like, be around everything, and even the other players, like, you could tell, like, whether it be, like, you could just tell, like, they understand who Cheryl Miller was. And in an era where we talk so much about, oh, this player did this, and we don't know the past person's name, being able to actively see Cheryl Miller there and also give appreciation to two other legends that were also there was just so incredibly dope. And to see a player in person like Cheryl Miller, who had broken containment, and people know Cheryl Miller, to then come back and be with these other players that have broken containment, like coaching Caitlin and Angel Reese, and the whole generational mix almost that we were seeing was fantastic. And to this day, my favorite quote of the entire 2024 was, "I'm having fun. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun." And like that, I felt like that just was fantastic. Like, and again, also the Camilla shot, the 3-pointer in the SC championship. I remember I was in Vegas with boots on the ground at the Pac-12 tournament, and my internet in my hotel room wasn't working. I was desperately trying to get a video out for us on YouTube, I think, and I was in a random sports like betting area, and I'm going hotel to hotel, literally just trying to find free Wi-Fi to upload this YouTube video. And I remember Dano Matayo was just randomly there from her hoop stats. He's great, and we were just there. We were just chatting it up, whatever. And we're watching the game on this small TV, and then the Camilla shot happens, and we are freaking out in the middle of this whole, like, it was like, I mean, it's in the afternoon, it was a weekend, like, there was not a ton going on, but we drew attention to the game, if nothing else. And that moment and the fight was also funny. So, I mean, look, like, that's a moment. I'm so sorry, but that's a moment. No,
it is a moment.
The social media reaction to that was insane. But no, that was an incredible record-breaking year. Like you said, the best of times, the worst of times. But
and I will, before we move off this, like, I will say this, because I can already picture the comments being like, you just glossed over like the catalyst for all this stuff. And I want to make sure that amidst this 2024, Caitlin Clark does get her flowers from us here.
Absolutely.
I know it's really easy, and like I fall into this too, right? The ability to kind of want to zag because everybody else is talking about that person. So it's not as though talking about Caitlin or not talking about Caitlin is going to mean that there's any less discussion about her, right? Like, there are entire pages devoted to her. At the same time, I think what differentiates us and what I've taken a lot of pride in this year in what we do is the fact that we look at the game from an even-handed perspective, right? And so even in the midst of elevating all of these other stories that we've had, I mean, she was the moment this year. And as much as it chafes me as someone who's been covering this game for a long time, that the WNBA has not elevated the stars, and like, you needed a kid behind Holly Rowe putting up a flashcard asking about Pearl Moore for us to talk about Pearl Moore, the flashcard doesn't go up if Caitlin isn't approaching the scoring record, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of these legends that I personally have talked to, whether it's Pearl, whether it's Marion Washington at Kansas, the legendary first Black woman head coach in major Division I women's basketball who coached Lynette Woodard, like they all say that there is not really an animosity towards her for the fact that the stories went untold. There's an appreciation for the fact that at least the stories are happening and being told now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to credit the greatness of this individual player, for what Caitlin Clark did at Iowa specifically, because I think that the history stuff was at its peak when we're approaching the records and when we're approaching the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That even though it was a reaction to get out and talk to these people, that these people were talked to. Because especially the original post-Title IX era of women, that AIAW era of women, they are getting older and we have already lost some, right? Like we have already lost Lucy Harris and we don't get the ability to check in with Lucy in 2024 now. A big reason that we're, I did the Legendarium chronology the way that I did is because I want to make sure that we get the first people first while we still have the opportunity to get them, right? Like, a contender for best moment of 2024, a late entrant, is Lucille Cavalos going into the Hall of Fame at long last. 92 years old, one of the pioneers of this sport, was a major driving force to laying the groundwork that 40 years later we could get Caitlin Clark to do what she did. And to me, that feels so meaningful that even though we have missed these, we get them now. And that allows for us. My wife is out off to the side of the screen here, like playing with the dogs. But it's meaningful to us now that we have the ability to talk about these things, and we have the ability to talk to these women and elevate and amplify their stories. And this is an example of rising tide lifting all boats. Like if we don't get Caitlin, do we make this same degree of effort? I don't know. And I think in that end, beyond the scoring, beyond the attention, beyond the eyeballs, beyond the CBA money and the TV money that is no doubt coming to this league, I think Caitlin Clark deserves a lot of credit this year for, frankly, forcing us and forcing people to go back and rediscover Cheryl and rediscover Lynette and rediscover Pearl and, have Maya Moore show up to Carver Hawkeye and really look back into the past and say, she is the culmination of 40 years plus of work here. And now when we look at Juju and the Paldo twins and Jersey Robinson and all these kids that are coming up next, like that's the next evolution of the game. And that's a pretty cool thing that we got this year at long last for a sport that all of us love and enjoy covering in the way that we do. It's dope. It's fucking dope.
It's incredible.
Okay. You guys got second picks. I'm going to pick a second thing.
Hell yeah, Greer.
Women's basketball stars breaking containment in like pop culture. So Caitlin on SNL, Angel announcing that she's going to the league in Vogue, right? Paige at Fashion Week, like Angel at the Met Gala, like super.
Angel could have a list of her. Yeah, Angel could have a list of her own. Like she's
on the cereal box. Yeah. I mean, she's doing crazy stuff. But like on the Cash App commercials, just like all of it, it's just super, super cool. And like, I mean, what I have known forever, right? Honestly, when it comes to female athletes and particularly like basketball, like obviously some of the just most charismatic beings out there, even take the CarMax commercials, any one of the State Farm ads, right? Like,
please fun. Take them. Yes, take them. Take them. I don't want to see another CarMax commercial ever again.
Oh no. We're shooting the next one. Don't worry, it's loaded. Oh, okay. No, they got to get Stewie climbing into a clown car or something next. That's next. But I think that was really cool. Like, really, really cool. And again, like we talked to the people down in Atlanta at overtime, and they were saying just like how prepared all of these young women are for these opportunities, especially in comparison to their male counterparts. And to see all of like the fruits of the labor really bear out, like super, super, super cool. And really just the tip of the iceberg.
No, for real. Like, as we were talking to these players, like whether it was the ones that we during our interview series, we got to sit down with them, or just as we're around and like talking to families or whatever, like, bro, this is just a start. Like, for like, genuinely, just like, it is crazy how ready the next gen, like, because everyone's just watching this. Like, they are watching and consuming this and just like itching to get to that level. And so when they get there, man, where it's this is just the start for real. To an incredible, for better or for worse, impactful.
For better. Mostly.
For better. It is 80%. For better. To 2024. Cheers.
Nice raising cane.
The wine bottle yet.